our layouts of the Word layout, Excel layout, RDL layout. We have Power BI. We have the built-in financial reports. We have the analysis views on list page.
Welcome to another episode of Dynamics Corner. What is the story of RDLC? I'm your co-host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on May 21st, 2026. Kris. RDLC, reports, Power BI, training. What can you do as part of your Business Central implementation? With us today, we have the opportunity to speak with Steve Rennius. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
Very well.
Good.
Very well. Very well. How are things in your new fancy office?
Great.
Great.
You're in the Riverside studio.
Yeah.
I like it. It's the lobby. It's the new lobby that we put together for the podcast.
Really comfortable.
Is it really comfortable? That's
It's
good.
nice. Good.
Good. We invested a lot in those couches and the like. And wow, it's been a crazy spring. I think early the beginning of the year. I know the Directions Asia just wrapped up. And shortly before that was Directions North America, which we had the opportunity to attend. Did you go to Directions Asia?
No, not this time. I've been there a couple of years ago, but this year I'm not doing many conferences these months because I'm doing a few tournaments with our little tennis team. We're not really good, but we're doing a few tournaments, and then it was difficult. I had to choose between one or the others.
I would say it might be a good choice. I mean, the Business Central, I love the product. I love all the events. But I think if you can have some fun playing tennis and traveling, playing some tennis, it's nice to get away from Business Central. I have to start doing that myself. I spend, with AI and all the additions to the product this spring and even last wave, it's not easy to get away because it feels like my days are consumed. So it's good that you're playing tennis. Where are you headed for your tennis tournament? Anywhere in?
No, it's local. Yeah, the clubs here around. We were really playing low level, but normally we practice a couple of times in the week, and we had this idea. Let's do some inter-club, we call it, and then these are games against other clubs every other weekends.
I need to find something to do. I wanted to start playing pickleball, but even just this past weekend, everyone's been asking me why I never started playing golf. After working in this industry, consulting for so many years, early on we used to travel a lot, and I've had many invitations to play golf, and I've never played. And most people told me that I probably don't have the patience and the personality for it, but
I think you'd hit it too hard, man. Because I try to get into golf because my son plays golf, so I really tried, and you're right, Brad. I just don't have the control. I could do like wedge and iron. It's pretty straightforward, but when you're doing that, when you're just trying to smack it, it's hard. It's really hard to stay straight.
Well, I may try this weekend because when we talked about it the other day, someone had told me that if you don't like where the ball goes, just drop another one and don't try to be good. And if you just go out to walk around, get some exercise, enjoy the weather, it's good. But I think it's important. It's nice to hear that you're doing tennis, something outside of Business Central. And that's something I think a lot of us miss, is a lot of individuals such as yourself. We see a lot that they do. We see what they share, what they post, what they present. But it's also nice to see some of the stuff that they do outside of Business Central to clear the mind a little bit or just stay active. So I like tennis. I tried playing tennis. I like it. I do like it.
We're not so good, but we enjoy ourselves, and it's great fun.
Yeah, I think that's the approach. I think it's important to just, it's not my profession. I'm not winning tournaments. I'm not a professional player, but I'm getting out there and talking with others and getting some exercise as well. I could talk about personal stuff forever, but I think we had some other things we wanted to talk about. Before we do that, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Steven. Steven Renders. I'm from Belgium. Mainly speak, well, some call it Dutch, we call it Flemish, but it's actually the same language. Belgium, we also speak French and German, so I speak a little bit of French, understand some German, and then English too. Been working in the, let's say, Navision world for, or let's say, since around 2004. Before that, I was mainly involved in doing bigger projects, development projects at bigger companies. I think CSC was the name, but they changed their name, I think, a while ago. And then we basically developed systems from scratch. And I was a mix between a developer and analyst. And then in 2004, joined the NAV Navision world, got to know the product. And then I was actually hired by Plataan, a company in Belgium that was also just starting. I think they started the company for about 6 months. And I joined them to deliver more technical sessions and trainings. Now, my first trainings had to think about were usually SQL Server related, so installation, configuration, and performance tuning. Later also development, and then reporting, which then became and still is a big passion of mine. So reporting and then related to Business Central, and in the past it was mainly report objects and RDLC layouts. And the latest years it's been Power BI and also all of the new bells and whistles that we almost see in the product.
Yes,
done quite a bit.
It is quite a bit, and when we had spoken before, it sort of framed what we wanted to talk about, because you have been working with Business Central for a long time, just like Kris and I have, and many others. And then there's also many that are new to it, and there's been a lot of changes to it. And there's two things that interest me in some of the things that you've done, and I've been able to follow things that you do as well, is the training aspect, and also reporting and the changes of reporting and how to report within Business Central. So Business Central, they announced during the keynotes at the conferences that Business Central, I think, is over 55,000 implementations now. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be quite a bit more, and it's accelerating over the past previous years. So there's a lot of new individuals using the application in these organizations. And it's not the type of application that you just click install and a couple buttons and start running. It has a lot of features, has a lot of functionality, and it can do a lot for many businesses. And businesses can set it up to fit their needs specifically versus having to say this is a general process, and it can do many things with it. And I am hearing a lot of people talking about training. Like, how do I start? Where do I begin? How do I get training? If someone was looking for that type of information, I know there's a lot online, there's a lot to do. How do you think they should approach training, or seeking out someone for training, or how to do training and structure that?
Very good question, because there is a lot of information out there. For example, there are many blogs, and you have the Microsoft Learn, Microsoft Docs. You have a lot of YouTube channels and videos. And what I usually say is try to do it in a structured way, similar on how you, for example, would tackle a project at a customer, or I would like to learn how to play tennis. So where do we find good training? And if I put on my commercial hats, and that would be at us, for example, at Plataan. And what makes us different is that we did the same exercise a couple of years ago on how can we differentiate ourselves, how can we create good trainings. And then we started thinking about training isn't only about transferring knowledge and skills, but also making it really applicable in the real world. So what we have in our, let's say, offering are real life case-based scenarios that we then use, and then we build our trainings around it. So following, and we call that a learning journey. It's a mix of content. So we have a few trainings, development, functional, technical, and so on a learning management system, where you're gradually going to learn some concepts, and that will be written out texts, some videos that we prepare to demo and explain, and actually also more than 50% assignments, with then also the solution and help of the instructor of support afterwards. And what makes it really different from, for example, what you find on Learn, because there you also have some assignments, is that here are really case-based. So we went back and I had some technical experience on projects. My colleagues had functional project management, other experience on projects, and we started thinking around what are the typical use cases customers ask you to, or have asked us in the past to implement. And how can we use that as kind of an umbrella to attach our training to? And that's what really makes it interesting. It's a mix of learning new stuff, but also immediately seeing how it can be applied in real life and linked to real, let's say, life business cases.
Yeah, I think that is, I think that you hit a few key points with this, because I try to keep up with a lot of the information that's available, and Microsoft Learn is a great resource for information, and it's evolving and they keep adding information, but some of it to me is rather generic. And I think from a user implementation, your suggestion for use-based training, so there may be general training for this is how you work and navigate through the application, this is how you set filters, but how you can structure the training unique to your organization and how you use the application makes adoption, I think, easier and learning it a bit easier. And there's a difference between users who are upgrading from, well, maybe even not, to be honest with you, from who may be upgrading from a previous version of the Navision or Dynamics Nav into Business Central or from another product. It can feel overwhelming because they leave their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's where I think training has always been one area that I find sometimes gets a shorter, for lack of better terms, budget or shorter focus.
Yeah.
And the
it's
value...
an afterthought. It's usually what that comes down to.
Exactly.
Yes,
it's part of the project plan, but usually it comes right before or right after the go live. Let's then do a little bit of training and everybody is happy. But actually, I think you should start with training in the analysis phase. And when you're doing the gap fit or the fit gap analysis and trying to understand the processes of the customer, if you already start with some basic training in Business Central, getting to know the user interface and the standards, that also helps you understand, okay, what might be missing, how are they doing business, and then you're starting the training, and at the same time you're learning how their processes work. And then later on you can follow it up with more specialized training for it.
That's a good point that you call out, following up with a specialized component, because a lot of people, where I've seen where they start the training very early, and then of course when you start early, it's usually just the base, right? The base functionality, whatever you got from Microsoft Learn. And then later down the road, you have some customization or some add-on that would shift a lot. And then some people are a little bit more apprehensive in that component because it's like, whoa, that's not what I remember. And then they struggle a little bit. So there's got to be some sort of balance where, yes, you understand its current state. You understand the limitation, just heads up, that process is going to change because you may not end up doing that. It may be automated or some sort. But I think to your point, starting super early to get them comfortable of the navigation of the application,
Mm-hmm.
and then follow up with any specialized area in their space.
Exactly.
So I think that's very important.
It can also, let's say, save budgets in the end, Because imagine you're doing an implementation and you're analyzing requirements, and let's say there is this person that's saying, I want this report. And because I use it to plan the warehouse and the picks and putaways and to organize all of that, I need to report with all of this information. And then a lot of companies will try to do an analysis. Okay, what you need in the report and where does the information come from? Or does it need to be visualized and refreshed? Instead of thinking about, for example, the standards, but it was a colleague of mine, Bernie, who recently told that he experienced that. He started with some training in the application, and after a couple of weeks of training, the person realized, well, actually, how the business process standard is going in Business Central means that I don't need that report anymore because it's already in the product. And by not starting doing training in the beginning, we've completely missed it. And then try to build that report, which was in the end not even necessary.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Training is an area, and it sounds like you have some methods that you suggest with it. It's not just instructional training, it's hands-on training to help reinforce the learning and coming up with a training plan that's focused on how you as an organization are going to do the processes within Business Central.
Yeah. There are two things. We try to have a mix of different trainings. So we have our learning management system based trainings. We call them boosters. Where, for example, we have a development booster, warehouse management. So really on certain functionalities you would like to learn. Then we also have that in our learning journey. And the learning journey consists of the boosters, but also expert sessions, which are usually instructor-led webinars of about 1 or 2 hours, where the subject matter expert comes and explains a certain topic, with then some Q&A. And then we also have some more classical trainings. Could be 1 day, 2 day, multiple day trainings. Sometimes linked to certifications that have to be given in a certain way. Or it also go a little bit deeper theoretically in certain areas. So that's one part, the mix of the different contents. As some learners prefer to see something, some learners prefer to do something and try it out, or to read. So we have all of that. And we try to put that in a learning journey, which is kind of a structure that helps you depending on where you are. And you might be completely new to, or you might have quite a lot of experience, and depending the type of learner that you are, the learning journey will also adapt and will suggest you expert sessions, boosters, webinars, depending on your experience and the topics that you're interested in. And you don't really have to go and look around and what am I going to do. It's already structured in the way that we recommend you to follow it.
It is such an important part of an implementation, and as I had mentioned, I feel it's often overlooked or under budgeted or under anticipated the amount of time that it will take. Not to say that it should be a lengthy process or should take time, but I mean, it will take a lot of time. I mean, it's all relative to the size of the implementation. If you're just using one small portion of the application, your training time won't be as involved as maybe if you're using many different areas of the application. But it's so important, and you hit something that was it's a point. It's sometimes people do the training after they go live, and I don't understand how they could do that, because how do you do testing? Because you can train as you're testing to make sure, and then also day one, when you make the decision of when you would like to go live with the application, you don't want the users to feel uncomfortable, of the users of the application to feel uncomfortable. You want them to feel comfortable right like they're at home and they can continue to process. It's running a business. It's very important. So I think that it's important as well. So I think it's a good training approach.
Yeah. And then the different aspects to it. Also, on the one hand, you have projects and users that need to learn. On the other hand, there's also consultants, developers. And for example, a couple of years ago, Microsoft started with continuous integration, continuous delivery in terms of development. Well, in terms of learning, we call it continuous learning. It's not something that you start and then suddenly it stops, and from a certain moment you know everything, because it continuously evolves. And that's also something that we try to offer. So basically, for a fixed fee, you get access to everything. You don't have to pay per training. Everything is in there, and whatever you're interested in learning today, tomorrow, next week, well, it's available.
Steven, what's the best approach in terms of, you have a lot of organizations going into Business Central, and they want to be able to document some of these training, maybe for the purpose of standard operating procedures or some SOPs that they want to maintain. What is who's responsible for creating that? Would that be a client side, or would that be the implementer's side when creating when creating SOPs?
I think it should be both, because on the one hand you have the client, and they really know their business and processes really, really well, but might not have so much experience in documenting it and how to document it, and also how to make sure that once a document is created, someone will still be able to read it afterwards and will read it. And I think so functional consultants might have that experience at how to create a document. So I think a combination of both is the best, in my opinion.
And from your perspective, when you're creating this documentation along while training at the same time, would you create those documentations while you're training, or would that be something way towards the very end, or maybe throughout the project? What would be the best approach to do that?
It's a difficult one. It really depends what you would like to create training on. If it's, for example, a training you're created and it's really product related, how a certain product will work, or if you're building customizations for a customer, and it's that you would like to create training and documentation on, then you can't really start doing that completely when the product isn't ready yet. Because if you would like to do some recording, some screenshots, it has to be ready before you can do that. On the other hand, you might already have a good idea on what it will do and how it will work, so that the structure of that you can already start to prepare. That's a
Okay.
product focused or add-on focused training.
That's good. Training is such an important part, and another important part, not to shift so rapidly onto it, but it's what I really was excited to talk with you about, is reporting. And reporting in Business Central has always been unique and special, to say. And originally it started off, if you go back to the Navision days, you had the built-in report designer, report layout, which I liked, and then they moved to RDLC reports. And then now you have Word layouts, you have Excel layouts, and you have custom report layouts. You have all these options and features that you have. And I can't forget, you can put in Power BI reports now too. I guess, do you call Power BI reports, or do you call them dashboards, or what do you, either one of you, what do you call it?
Well, Microsoft would call it a data visualization tool, so you can get insights and learn from your data. But I call it differently. But I think the whole aspect has changed. It's in the past. We really didn't have that much choice. If you wanted to create a report, it was the report object, and then you had even the classic layout a long time ago, and then RDLC came in. And it was really basically based on the development object. So we have the report object. That's where you go. That's what you are going to use, and that's how we are going to think about reporting. Nowadays, you have much more. We still have the report object with some more layouts, of the Word layout, Excel layout, RDL layout. We have Power BI. We have the built-in financial reports. We have the analysis views on list pages, and a few more possibilities. So now the question is actually completely turned around. in the past, you would simply say, okay, what's the data that you need? You would start building the report. Now, in the beginning, you shouldn't even think about any technology when reporting is involved. It all starts by asking questions. What do you need this report or the data for to be able to take which kind of decisions? Does it need to be live data? How live or recent does the data need to be? What are you going to do? Do you need to be able to print something, send something? Do you want to drill down? Do you want to summarize, aggregate data, and a whole bunch of questions, and that will then direct you towards which is going to be the best technology to use. And that can sometimes be Power BI, but can nowadays also simply be the analysis mode on list pages, which end users, key users can, if you explain how that works, can already create themselves. And I see that also happening in real life. For customers where in the past I would make them a few Power BI reports to aggregate a few ledger entries and group them by date, month, year, and a few other dimensions. And nowadays, users do that simply directly in a list page, jumping into the analysis mode, and they can do it themselves. And that's a really, really big change. It's not really the technology anymore, but it's the requirement and then deciding what's going to be the best solution.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's understanding the requirements and who the audience is going to be for that report. Because you're right. Sometimes you don't need a fancy report if you just want to do a quick analysis and you have the analysis mode. And one thing I've noticed too, even from the analysis mode, you can export into Excel, right? Mm-hmm. When you export to Excel and you have all the data points already and maybe just a quick ad hoc, you can use Excel Copilot to generate additional component. And then you have a very good reporting tool that can possibly expose information that you wouldn't know until you export it to Excel, and then using Excel Copilot. And then the other components is the Power BI. It's more of an interactive report where if someone likes to interact with some of the data sets or drill down into the data of what makes up that, maybe a pie chart of some sort, then you can get that data in the back end and then perhaps use some of the features like Copilot to ask directly from your Power BI visualize a tool, then get additional information on top of that. Like your point, it doesn't really matter in terms of the tool in this sense. It's really understanding the requirements and then trying to figure out, okay, what are you trying to get out of it?
I think that is the important part. Mm-hmm. It's how is this data going to be used is what I'm hearing.
And the data model.
Because you have printed reports and please correct me if I may think incorrectly, but I've started to come to the point, and I've been saying the analysis mode is my favorite feature that's been added to Business Central for as long as I can remember. A lot of great features in there. A lot of things have been added that I really enjoy, but you can only have one favorite by definition, in my opinion. And my one favorite is the analysis mode. It's determining which output to present, because even now with Business Central 2026 Wave 1, you can develop analysis views or modes that you can include in extensions that you develop, which is almost like allowing for another report to be added, which gives the user of that view the ability to manipulate it almost, as I tell people, like a pivot table and to filter it, but with a good core group. We have reports you can use RDLC, Word, and Excel, which I want to talk about more of those in a moment. We have Power BI, and all of those are within Business Central.
Yeah.
I've started to come to the mode of, if it's something that I'm going to print and give to somebody, then we would use a report, and that would be something like a sales invoice, a sales order, a packing slip, or the like. And then the other pieces would be if the user was going to need to manipulate it. I don't want to say manipulate it. Work with it differently based upon external conditions, then you would want to go more with a Power BI data visualization. I like that, the Power BI data visualization and an analysis view, and possibly an Excel layout.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they could have the data and put that into Excel.
Yeah, I also think about it in the same way. The report object is more and more going to be a more document style report. So it's a PDF or that you would like to be able to print, email out, to communicate with other departments or customers and vendors. And for that, we are still going to use the report object. Power BI also has two different aspects. You have all of the visuals that you create in a Power BI report, which can have multiple pages, which you can also then convert into a dashboard, a scorecard, and so on. So you can really visualize and present the data in different ways, make it ready to slice and dice and analyze. But Power BI also has the data model. So for example, when you start building a Power BI report, you first model the data, which might be coming from different data of different tables in Business Central, also combined with some other data sources. That data model you then upload in the Power BI service. And even without any pages around it, that data model can also be managed and shared. I have that online in my Power BI service, which is secured. And then users can, for example, use Excel and simply connect to that data model. We have a lot of the relationships and the measures and KPIs built in, and they can use Excel to report on that. Or they might use the Power BI report, which I created that looks at the data. It's also something which is sometimes forgotten. Power BI is two things: the data modeling, and optionally also the visualizations you can already create, but you can connect to the data model from Excel and also from other tools. And on top of that, usually when Power BI fetches data from Business Central, I prefer to work with query objects. Could also be page APIs. I prefer query APIs because they can pre-aggregate the data. And by simply adding a little property in a query API, you can also, in the Business Central client, find it via Tell Me or Search. And then it opens automatically in the analysis mode. And then you can also directly, as a user, use the same APIs that Power BI is fetching for its advanced reports, but use the API and create your own view in Business Central itself.
So you look at the reporting, we can embed Power BI views within Business Central to give the user a dashboard or the ability to work with that layout in application.
Mm-hmm.
And then also Power BI as its own viewing area that accesses Business Central data via API or other means.
Yeah. Well, it's in Power BI you build your data model.
Okay.
For example, I would like some information about the item ledger entry table. You would use that API and import that information in my data model. I'm also going to get some items, some attributes, some other data in that data model, which I'm then going to connect the dots, connect all of the tables. That data model is something that you can already upload and publish to the Power BI service, which is the online, the website, intranet for an organization. It's connected data in a star or snowflake schema, which is optimized for reporting and totaling and subtotaling. That's something that already an Excel can connect to. So a Power user who knows his or her way around Excel can simply say, get data, okay, from my Power BI online service. There is this Power BI data model. I'm going to connect to it, and I'm going to build my own Excel report. That's one thing. I can also build a Power BI report that connects to that data model, and then with the Power BI visualizations, and create my view on the data. Make it also available on the Power BI service, and then that Power BI report and/or dashboard and scorecards, if you create them, those you can embed back into Business Central, into the client if you want to. Yeah. And then the building stones, let's say the little blocks of Lego that you use to build the data model, the query APIs. The little property inside they're also searchable from within the Business Central client by user. And it opens them automatically in that page analysis view mode, where you can also create your own pivot table.
With this, and I'm thinking of users coming to Business Central or implementations that may have other systems that they use. Business Central can do quite a bit for an organization, can run a significant portion of a business, if not all of it. But there are those cases where they may need to have an external system to do some functions that are specific to their organization. Mm-hmm. Using Power BI, so think of somebody upgrading, migrating, re-implementing. What do I do with all of my old data is always a question that I hear. How do I bring that forward? Is there a way maybe with Power BI and even somebody that has an external system so that now we can bring all of that data together within Business Central using Power BI?
Yeah, that's actually one of the decision, let's say, makers in choosing for Power BI or maybe some other solution or reporting solution. And because Power BI can get its data from Business Central and or also connect to other systems that you are using, import that data to in the same data model and link it. And then in Power BI, you can create your visualizations on top of the data coming from all of the different systems and embed that back into Business Central. Especially if you need a report which combines or needs to combine data from different systems that you're using, Power BI is the ideal solution.
And you can get that visualization within Business Central as well, not just Power BI outside.
Yeah, exactly. So what we typically build is a report. And you start with Power BI desktop, or nowadays you can even start in the browser too. You save it as a Power BI file, PBEX, like Excel and XLX, Power BI file. That's a report. It can have one or multiple pages with different views on the data. A report, once uploaded, you can embed that in Business Central. That's one thing. And if you have one or multiple reports that you have already created, you can create a dashboard, like a helicopter view on different reports. Basically, a dashboard is a collection of visuals that come from one or multiple reports below it. If in the dashboard you click on a visual, you will then be redirected to the page of the report where it comes from. In that dashboard, you can create one or multiple dashboards. The dashboard is also something you can embed back into Business Central. And then Power BI reports, dashboards show the data as it currently is in the Power BI data model. You can refresh that, the schedule, and depending on the license that you have, once per day, 8 times per day, and 48 times per day. And you're looking at the data as it is right now in Business Central, the as-is situation. Of course, if I'm going to import a whole bunch of ledger entries, I have my posting date, which has a month, a year, a day, so I can use that to filter the data on specific months, years, and I can look back at the past. But it's always the data as it is right now in Business Central. If I change something in Business Central, I sync the data again, then Power BI will show it as it is currently in Business Central. And the Power BI reports and dashboards, they do that. Sometimes you also would like, we call it a scorecard in Power BI, to take kind of a snapshot of a metric today, next day, day after that, so you can see the snapshot, that metric evolving. And that's something which you can do with a scorecard in Power BI. You can identify one or multiple metrics that you have, KPI. And it will take a snapshot, a picture of it, according to a schedule, once per hour, once per day, and you can see that evolving. And it gives you more information than what you currently see in Business Central. It also shows you how it was in the past. That's something you can visualize in a scorecard on a little chart or with some conditional formatting if you are on target, below target, and so on. And a scorecard is also something you can embed back into Business Central. Yeah.
That is, I learned something new with everyone that I speak with everywhere, either on the podcast or outside. But scorecards and the ability to track that information, that is often a requirement of individuals on the implementations. Vendor scorecards, customer scorecards for different type of criteria. So utilizing Power BI and the snapshots, you can track information over time outside of just the historical documents that are within Business Central. You can get the what I would call the I don't want to say temporary date, but transactional data. It's some of these, and this is where there's so much to the application that sometimes I was just at Directions North America, and I had some conversations with many people after the conference and even some people at the event. And they were asking me what I thought about the conference. And it's always a great conference. And this year, and you talking about this, I'll go off on a little tangent for a moment. I apologize, but I do want to go back to talking about Word reports, Excel reports, and RDLC. I think what hit me this year is these events need to stop being so academic and more instructional and application use. Meaning, just like you had talked about, we can say you create a data model, you can now embed Power BI, look how great this is. But now saying, how do we use the application? Let's have sessions, let's give keynotes, let's give presentations of real world examples that help individuals think of how can I use all of this stuff? Because it's so great to see this new functionality saying that we can do it. But let's walk through a scenario. Let's walk through business cases of how a business would capitalize on using this feature or how they could apply this technology. I don't know if it's just me getting old. I don't know if there's just a lot of things coming at us, but I was not alone in this event.
Absolutely.
And
I think that's what I think that's more important now because it changes so much with AI, Copilot, right? So you're being fed with so many information. To your point, Brad, I think a lot of the sessions moving forward should be more story driven. So when you tell it as a story, it slows everything down. It resonates with everybody, and you could bring up use cases. It's like, hey, you are a distribution company. Here's this new feature. How would you use that? Well, let me show you an example of what you would do as someone in that industry. And it kind of creates that connection. So you have to tell that story. I think that's what we need more of because it allows you to slow down when there's so many information to take in. But you're right. I think I got the same feedback. I think that's my feedback from these current conferences we go to. It's not just like, hey, here's the new tool, here's what it can do, it's awesome, but then not really like, okay, well, how does that affect me? I don't know anything about it besides visualization or whatever it can do, but what does it look like in my world, in my story, running a business?
Yes, the story. And that's what the session that Steve, not you, and I did, and that's what we did, and that's we had great feedback because that's what they said is it was a story. And I could visualize the story. And you talking about the dashboards and you talking about putting this all together brought me back to that conversation and to that moment of Power BI is great. I can put a dashboard in great, but application-wise, I can do vendor scorecards because of the snapshots. I can put my historical data alongside my Business Central data and not have to do a big data conversion for it. Or I can do some visualizations with my other systems. So RDLC, as we had mentioned, was the transition from the classic reports to RDLC when it went to Microsoft Dynamics Nav. And then now within Business Central, you can still create RDLC reports. You have Word reports and you have Excel layouts. Microsoft is working on moving a lot of the RDLC reports to the Word layouts. Yep. And I don't know if they have any default Excel layouts in there, but what is your suggestion on and your experience on which one of those layouts to use? When would I use an RDLC if I should continue to use them? When should I use a Word layout? When should I use an Excel layout?
But I think it's also important to know the history. And the reason why we have RDLC in Business Central is that it was within Microsoft, I heard, a corporate decision. So basically in 2000, SQL Server came out with SQL Server reporting services, which then became RDLC. It was one of the reporting tools from Microsoft, and they also had many, many others. At a certain point, I think in Seattle, someone decided within Microsoft, we are only going to have one reporting solution left. It became RDLC. And then, for example, the vision team, the central team had to use it as a reporting solution. And I think they did it in a good way. So then we had the classic reports, we had the RDLC reports. But since, I think, 2016, we had the latest official version of RDLC or SQL Server reporting services, so there wasn't much official support for it anymore. So we're using kind of old technology. It still works, but there wasn't good support for it anymore. So it's time to phase it out. And we are at 2026 at the moment. In the report object in Business Central nowadays, we have the RDLC layout, the Word layout, the Excel layout. RDLC was great to develop documents. So something that you need to print and you would like to position what needs to be where on the page. And when you look at it in preview or design time, it's almost exactly the same than how it looks like when you print it. So ideal for documents. With the capability of also being able to do conditional formatting, expressions in the layout to dynamically show or hide certain tables, text boxes, which is what you need in many situations in a document. The Word layout was introduced as an alternative, and because it's easier for users to use to create a layout. But it was more difficult, and sometimes still is more difficult in the Word layout to have those conditional formatting, conditional visibility expressions. Then Microsoft Kenny came with the Business Central add-in for Word, which is now getting more and more functionality. And it will bring into the Word layout typically the functionality that we're using in RDLC, which is not available in the Word layout. Currently, it is the blank zero, and so being able to blank out a zero on a text box, a column, a row, a whole table. But I think in the future, more and more of that functionality will be added into that add-in. Like, for example, conditional visibility, conditional formatting. And then at some point, we'll be, with the Word layout, being able to do exactly what the RDLC layout was able to do in the past. And then we can migrate fully towards the Word layout. Nowadays, you can already try it, but there are sometimes difficulties in doing things with the Word layout that you currently do with the RDLC. Having said that, RDLC is something that will be obsoleted at some point. And I think Microsoft is already starting with that, with all of the layouts which are in the base app, the standards. The RDLCs are still there, but they're being phased out and moved towards either Word layouts or Excel layouts, depending on what the report is for. If it's more something that needs to be printed, then it's going to be a Word layout. If it's more something which is going to summarize data, and is going to be an Excel layout or the combination of both. And I think in version 28, I'm already starting in version 27. With almost all of the out-of-the-box reports from the base app, there is no, besides the old RDLC layout, the Word layout, and maybe also already an Excel layout. And these are really, really well designed, I think. They're looking really, really nice. It's just a matter of getting to know them and getting to use them more. And I think RDLC is slowly going to be phased out, except for those reports where it's going to be really difficult. And especially, for example, in the US localization with the Czech reports. I haven't worked with it myself yet because we don't use Czechs in Europe. But that's something for which I think is going to be really difficult to have that replaced with a Word or an Excel layout.
We did have a long conversation about that at the Directions North America conference, and I still do not understand why the US uses, I mean, I do understand why the U.S. uses checks. I understand the banking system and all that, and then on the other side is I don't understand why U.S. organizations spend so much time formatting their checks. I think it would be so well served to say, here's a Business Central report that lines up on this check stock. Just use it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've really, in the years that I've been working with Business Central, have seen organizations spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars getting a check to look a certain way because the micro has to line up, it have proper spacing. Like the check has to have the perfect layout for the banks to be able to process them. Electronically. Right? It's just it's one of those things that I don't understand, and maybe that is the last RDLC report that's left in Business Central only for the U.S. localization.
I think at some point, I think we're going to have to start preparing to be ready at some point to live completely without RDLC.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, sir, we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. I could speak with you at length. We'll have to see if we can schedule you to come back on to do a little follow-up on some of these, because I did want to see if we could talk more about the Word add-in and some of the other changes that we had there. So we do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. If anyone would like to contact you to learn a little bit more about training or to discuss Power BI reports, Word layouts, or any other the great things that you're doing for the community, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
The easiest is to have a look at my blog. It's called thinkaboutit.be. And there you have all the latest blogs, usually reporting related, and you have my contact details, and feel free to contact me. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Steven Renders, and I'm pretty easy to find. Always happy to help out.
No, great. Thank you again. I do also appreciate your blog. It is one of my feeds as well. So I appreciate the articles that you're creating and contributing to the Business Central community. I look forward to getting to speaking with you soon. Thank you again, and talk with you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, Steven.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is Matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.